Majo John, Ned, and Juanito in the dugout. Big athletic field to the south of the Acamal Pueblo. It's where I come when I want peace and quiet. And my new martial arts teacher, Tommy, told me that if I want to practice working with a stick, I should do it outdoors, and there's lots of room here, and I just did some things that surprised me. So the song that comes to mind here is, "Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play today. Put me in, coach. Look at me. I could be center field." Now, there's a period of time in Asheville, 16 years there, '04 to 2020, when I was a vendor at the ballpark. They had a wonderful minor league team, and the games were a real event. They had great sound system and lots of fun events. And I was the only vendor working in the stands. And I was the famous dancing vendor who would do Michael Jackson moonwalks and stuff. And one day when I would get people dancing with me. One day when our team was losing terribly, I yelled up into the section of the bleachers, "This game sucks, let's dance." So we danced. And when I quit because it finally got boring to me, they came after me and said, "We need you out there, please come back." So I did for a while. But tennis, what about tennis? I've talked about juggling, I've talked about martial arts, I've talked about dance. I started playing tennis in high school with Greg Mize, one of my seminary buddies. We'd be off on Thursdays because they were trying to keep us away from the regular high school kids, or God forbid, dating. So we'd play tennis on a Thursday and had a lot of fun. Little Hollywood school just north of where I lived, right by Brookfield Zoo in the western suburbs of Chicago. So tennis was with me for a long time. One of my most ignominious moments as a father was when my son, black kid, for some reason got curious about tennis. And about our third time out, I gave him one too many bits of coaching, and that was a lesson to me. Why are you picking on the nits and grits? Let him just enjoy it. But I blew it. He threw it on the racket, and he never went back to it. I was in Nova Scotia, Canada. It was the last couple of years of our marriage, right before we went to Syracuse, and it all fell apart. And in Nova Scotia, they just put in tennis courts in the town of Amherst, where I worked at the mental health center. And they wanted somebody to teach tennis. Well, I had been very influenced by Tim Gallwey, The Inner Game of Tennis. The original book like that was Zen and the Art of Archery by Eugene Herrigel, where he talked about the Zen approach to archery. Clear your mind and just let your body do it. And then there was a book called Golf in the Kingdom that applied Zen to golf. And then Galway came along with The Inner Game of Tennis. So that's what I taught out there. If the ball goes a foot out, don't say, "How do I make it go a foot shorter?" No, just notice. Say, "Okay, it went a foot out. Let's see what we need to do about that." And you let your body take care of it. So that was a lot of fun. And while I was there, I would play tennis with Ram Budazing. Had another name. Greg Mize was the name I haven't thought for years, and Ram Budazing not for a long time. He was a doctor at the hospital where I worked in the mental health center. And he had his own court way out in the country. And we would go for it. We were evenly matched. We were both pretty good. And we would do everything we could to get it past each other. Now, it was either Ram Dass or one of his students said, when you're playing tennis, it may look on the surface like you're trying to get it past the other guy. But really what you want is to hit it to a place where it's very hard for them to return it and for them to return it, just to make the match really exciting. And we would sweat and grunt and yell, and oh my God. And then when his wife would bring us iced tea at our break, she'd say, "Well, who won?" I guess we'd be done. And we look at each other, and neither of us could remember who won, because that wasn't the point at all. And during that same period, while I was in Nova Scotia, I became a student of my first meditation teacher, Sri Chinmoy, in New York City. And we would, a bunch of us from the Halifax, Nova Scotia Center, pile into a big rented station wagon and go to New York for the big events there, drive through the night. One time the Queen Elizabeth Way, QEW, was closed for a blizzard, but we were so heavy that we just pushed on and went through. And Sri Chinmoy was all about pushing yourself past your limits, doing things you can't do, running marathons, etc. And at this point, he was into tennis himself. And in the mornings, people would come out to watch him play tennis. And he'd play with various students for 15, 20 minutes. So I got tapped. It was my time to go in, and we played for about 20 minutes. And one of the inner circle, now the inner circle there were jealous of their spot, so they didn't frequently give out compliments. But one of them came over to me afterwards and said, "Guru really likes playing with you. That was fun. He enjoyed that a lot." And during that time in Jamaica, Queens, New York, or another time, I happened to stumble in. One of Sri Chinmoy's most famous students was Carlos Santana, who would do an acoustic concert at the town hall every time we got together. And I didn't know where the Guru's house was. I just somehow ended up in the backyard, and there was Sri Chinmoy and Carlos Santana and maybe 20 people. And Sri Chinmoy was coaching Santana about how to meditate when he did a concert. And he said, don't open yourself up to all their adulation, because then you'll open up to all the other crap they're putting out. So play, and it was a fault of Sri Chinmoy that he made God be a father. I'm not with that so much. But he'd say, play only for your divine father. That's all you're playing for. And just a month or so later, this is when we were in Syracuse, I went to a concert where Carlos Santana was playing for thousands of students in the school gym. And I knew that he was playing only for God. So the next morning I went out to my regular tennis date and said to myself, I want to use my tennis racket with the same level of authority that he wields his guitar. And I played so good that I frightened me and my partner. Like, where did that come from? Where did it come from? Not from the little me. And that's the point of all this stuff, is getting it that who you think you are is not who you really are. And if you can go into the zone, if you can let go, if you can do a Zen thing and not think. One of the other little martial arts things I do is it's a little like in The Karate Kid. I never watched that show much, where he'd call his student Little Grasshopper. I adjust myself that way. I'll say, don't think, do. Don't do, be. I don't know, all this crazy stuff, but it really helps me. I'm doing a complicated task that I don't quite know how to make it happen. I'll say, don't think, just do. So I do it. And now I've got a teacher. Now I've got a guy who's got, like, I don't know how many black belts, so many arts, and he radiates power, and he greatly underestimates me, but that's okay. I'll surprise him little by little. And he's a guy who, if he gets curious about me, could understand me more than anybody else around, because he'll say, oh, okay, well, this is what's going on for you here. Let's have you try this technique. Won't that be interesting?